So we are going to be talking about we're going to talk about relationships. And when you talk about relationships, there are a couple of questions that you need to ask yourself. I think the first one that you generally get asked in um, like if you were doing a therapy session is, who are you in a relationship with? And um, uh, the answer that a lot of people, you may not know it, but the answer that you should be looking for is, well, we're in a relationship with others and we're in a relationship with ourselves. And the way that this ties into League of Legends is that I think that we often as players do not have a good relationship with ourselves, and that can lead to a disconnect in our decision making and play style and what we do. Um, so yeah, let me just pull up a couple of my notes that I've had from um, some other places. And I don't think it's some music. I hope you like Elenium because dang. Um, okay. Bogo Binted. What did I walk into? You walked into a coaching session because I'm not a good coach in the playing of this game. Um, like I do not know anything about this game. But we're still gonna watch my point of view because come on, hey, you still gotta represent the player. Um, so let's talk about some key factors in a relationship. Let's say we can start with accountability, because accountability is extremely important, not just for when you interact with others, but when you interact with yourself. And the focus of today is going to be relationships with ourselves. So, and accountability. That looks like, am I doing what I need to do for myself, um, with my interests in mind? And that's going to segue pretty cleanly into boundaries. What are boundaries? Um, After boundaries, we can figure out, hey, am I keeping myself accountable? Am I following my boundaries? Am I aware of myself enough to know what the boundaries I need are? And then the last thing is um, looking at like fault and responsibility. I think that these four things are going to be really helpful in knowing how to have a better relationship with yourself so that it can improve your game of League of Legends. So first, how often is it that you maybe see yourself and say something to yourself and say like, you know what, for me, like I'll say I'll wake up every single morning at 5:30. I have to wake up at 5:30. It'll give me more time throughout the day. I'll wake up, I'll get ready, I'll start cooking breakfast, I'll do all of this stuff so that I'm ready before my daughter wakes up. Well, okay, how often can you say that and you still not follow through? Like, let's say I woke up at 6 this morning. Okay, well, is it right for me to say something that I'm not following through with every single day? Um, and if I was going to relate that to League of Legends, I would say, how often do I tell myself that I am going to just one trick Akali and try to improve my rank? And then, regardless of what's happening, I still, for some reason, don't pick Akali. It's crazy. I do it all of the time. I think that a lot of people do this all the time. And this sets a pretty bad foundation for having strong accountability in ourselves. Um, the next sort of thing that kind of like can segue into is like, um, let's say my goal is to pick X champ, or let's say my goal isn't even just to pick a champ, because let's focus on some sort of other gameplay aspect. Let's say my goal is to have better farm in the game. Um, well, that can come with a couple of different ways on how to like act with it. Um, so let's say that I am trying to, and my Twitch just actually disconnected, which is super unfortunate. But let's say that I'm trying to farm better. If my goal is to farm better, then I'm going to want to have to establish a very, very small amount of effort towards that before I can put a lot of effort into that. If my goal is to have 8 CS per minute every single game, then I'm not going to be able to meet that goal because it is such a long and variable amount of time in the game. However, I can make a new assessment of the situation and assertion to myself that I am going to set a timer for the first 10 minutes of every game. My goal in the first 10 minutes of every game is to be at 7.5 CS per minute. That can be your goal. And that is going to establish for you a steady, easy time framework so that you're not overcommitting resources and motivation that you have to something that maybe you don't have. Like there's a book, I forget what the book's called, but it's like the bazillion dollar mindset. It's not that. But basically he says if your goal is to go to the gym every day, then make your goal to go to the gym every day for 5 minutes. It's a lot easier to do something for 5 minutes than it is to do something for 1 hour. And it's not about setting a progress kind of bar. You're not looking at the results or the process of anything. Well, you're not looking at the results. You're looking at the process. I meant to say progress. You're not looking at results or progress. You're looking at a habit being formed. Forming habits is the foundation of any type of growth in anything that we do. And so being able to form a habit is always the hardest part. So let's say that, I have a habit and I want to stop doing something. Well, for that habit to be broken, it's going to take a pretty long time because I've developed this habit of, oh, I'm only going to farm my minion wave. And then after my wave is gone, then I'm going to leave. Well, if there's times where, hey, maybe I shouldn't farm this minion wave and I should just move to the objective earlier, then I'm going to have a hard time breaking that habit. It's a lot easier for me to say, like, I bite my nails every day. It's going to be really hard to stop biting your nails if you've been biting your nails for, I don't know, 20 years. But let's touch a little bit about, now we kind of covered accountability for yourself. We can talk about boundaries. So a boundary is this word that you might think is sort of a buzzword, and it's very hard to maybe understand. But a boundary is basically what situation do you allow yourself to be put in? So let's say that I have a boundary that says I will not allow myself to be put in a situation that makes me feel less than I currently am. I do not like to interact with X individual in a one-on-one scenario because it does not make me feel comfortable. Therefore, I will not allow myself to be in a one-on-one situation with them. I will be in a situation with them, with another person, or I just won't be in that kind of position with them ever. And that's just like a weird example, I guess. It's depending on your work for. I missed that canon. That's, but that's something. But like, if I was going to put it into League of Legends terms, okay, well, what's a situation that you probably don't want to put yourself in when it relates to League of Legends? Well, for me, I do not want to be in a position where I am going to die because of other people's actions. If I know that a fight is going to be 2v4, I will not put myself in that position regardless of anyone trying to change or disrespect that boundary. Another sort of boundary or disrespect that you can feel is I am a very late game champ. I do not want to be told to go in on my laner in a 2v2 fight. If I'm playing ASOL and I receive a gank that is ultimately not going to work, I do not want that to happen. And now we have a boundary that's being crossed, and we need to talk about the feeling that you feel. Do you feel slighted? Do you feel ignored? Do you feel angry? What is your behavior surrounding that boundary being crossed by another individual? And then additionally is, what is your response to a boundary that you have set that you are not respecting yourself? Um, and that's where this section of developing an awareness um, for who you are can come into play. Where um, this is like the most this is the deepest part of having a relationship with yourself, because you need to really, really deep dive psychoanalyze yourself in a couple of aspects. So the first one that I'll say is um, that you need to be aware of the actions that you take. So it's not on me um, to dictate your actions, and it's not on you to dictate mine. I'm going to be very aware of both of these situations and scenarios. And now, once we're aware of certain interactions with ourselves and others, we can start to maybe talk about and think, is there a reason that I broke my boundary? Am I looking for a type of validation that I cannot receive from others? Or from myself? Am I lacking in some area of communication with myself that I am searching for it externally? So that brings up to, let's say, like like are you able to validate yourself? Can you find a way to validate yourself? Um and why would you break your boundaries when you know them so well? They're your boundaries. If my jungler is 0-5 and constantly going in, why would I feel the need to go in with them? You know? Do I have a valid enough reason to go in? More often than not, I would probably say no. Like, I am not going to follow my jungler in. Like, let's say I was a part of those 5 deaths. Let's say me and the jungler are both 0-3. All right. Why would I follow my jungler in that 4th time before I say to myself, I'm going to stop? You need to be able to trust yourself and your decisions before you trust others. If you know that your fight as Galio and Diana into Twisted Fate and Viego, or let's be maybe more a little bit more realistic. Let's say that Diana and Galio fighting a Urgot and Viego is the fight that's going to happen. If I'm confident and I know that we do not win that fight, why would I do something to appease another person? Why am I looking to go in with them? Is there a sense of self that I'm missing? Is there a type of validation that I'm searching for? Or am I attempting to validate another person? And why am I trying to validate that other person? Is there a reason for me to go in and say, oh, if I don't go in, then that person's just going to get angry? Is he? If he does get angry, that is not your fault. You know, and that's that. I guess that's a really good way to put it. Is that your attempts to validate and your attempts to mitigate certain things, like whether someone gets angry or not, is not your fault or responsibility in a lot of cases. And I guess that's the last part, which is fault and responsibility of whose fault is it, whose responsibility. And this comes down to being able to introspectively search and say, am I able to do this? Am I able to explain a situation? So let's say that there's a couple of different things that people do. It's they take no fault, therefore they take no responsibility. And then the next part is they take too much responsibility for things that are also not even their fault. So let's say that my mid laner gets 2 kills. Okay. It is not my fault. And let's say this mid laner got 2 kills in a stupid little gank and shit that was pointless, all right? This guy got 2 free kills. He roamed bot and he got 2 free kills, all right? It is not my fault. I ping, I say everything I need to tell them to back off, and my team still dies. It is not my fault that my mid laner is ahead of me in gold by 2 kills. However, it is your responsibility to mitigate what you can and to continue to not feed that laner yourself. If you let your laner get ahead and you ultimately say, oh, this game is over, I need to speed this up. If I say that this game's over because my laner just got 2 free kills, I'm just going to play and I'm not going to care about what happens. I'm just going to sit here and I missed the can again. And the game's over already. There's no point in trying to fight this. That's the wrong mindset, because you are not taking responsibility when you can, even if it is not your fault. The next part, all right? Not taking responsibility for everything, all right? You know, this situation isn't my fault, you know? Therefore I have to do it. Like, oh, it's my fault that my laner is 2-0. I got to fix it. Well, no, you can accept that it is not your fault, but it's still your responsibility. You need to learn how to accept certain situations. So it is, and I guess in a game like this, let's say it is not your fault and it is not your responsibility alone, right? It's not your responsibility alone. Okay? It's a team game, so it's you know, both of you should be able to do this. Like people being like, oh, it's no, all my problems are my own fault. Well, you can accept that you did not cause a situation, and you can still take responsibility of it. This is a thing called dialectical, a DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, or, you know, a tool that you can use within it, is to take the word but out of your vocabulary. I am a really strong laner, and I'm really good at, you know, getting a lead in lane, whether that's through a kill, through better farm and zoning. I am really good at that. But I don't do certain things well. I'm not that good at roaming. You have to take the word but out of your language, because it pretty much takes away the value of that first statement. You saying I'm good at this, but is dismissive of that, and is a very, very poor mindset to have. So learning to qualify and use positive and affirming and accepting language afterwards is going to be the best route. Like, I am a really strong laner, and sometimes I struggle to have an impact outside of my lane. And that's the kind of language that you probably, like, you should be using, because it's not, you don't need to get rid of that, but it's you know, I'm a good laner, and sometimes I make some pretty stupid mistakes as it comes to the time of the game where we leave our lanes. And the last sort of step with, like, improving and, like, having a relationship is to be able to communicate effectively and directly. I from personal experience as someone that was potentially trying to be a coach for a team, was that, you know, I did not directly communicate in a lot of areas. I often told the players that I coached to do your thing. And, you know, like, this is me acting on an assumption that everyone thinks the same, but not everyone thinks the same. And that's ridiculous to think that everyone thinks the exact same. And it was my fault. They had no management. They had no change, because there was no oversight of the scenario. So how does this kind of feed into, like, improving your gameplay? Well, if you say to yourself that that you just want to get better at the game, and now you're saying go, well, without room to talk to yourself and openly communicate what you need to improve at is you're not going to be able to improve. People need a goal. They need some sort of external oversight in order to be able to actually improve or make progress. And these are some small expectations. And if you want to build a really smart habit that's based on improvement, that one can be self-analyzing VOD reviews. Make it a habit that after your day of playing League of Legends, you set aside time to get, let's say, maybe 1 or 2 games to watch. And it doesn't have to be a long game. It can be 5 minutes, and you can watch it at 2 times speed, 4 times speed, 8 times speed. You can watch it however slow, however fast you want. But you need to be able to look at that and be mindful and say, well, let's put this on paper. What did I do well? What didn't go so well today? How did I feel about what went well and what didn't today? When did I maybe tilt? When did I maybe feel really good about a game and feel like the game was almost unlosable? You know? And when you do this kind of open level of communication, very short form, make it your 5-minute task a day to help improve. And this is not going to just help improve League, but it help improve all of your activities and actions and things that you want to improve. That you communicate in a place of joy and kindness, and you say, you know, what did I do well, and what didn't go so well. It's not what did I do well, what did I do bad. This is now changing your perspective to I'm already good at X thing, therefore I'm not going to intentionally look at that thing, and I'm going to start focusing on the other things that I deem as bad. So it's just a way that you're going to be able to actively talk about the scenario, so that you're not just like doomering onto a certain aspect or not. So I think that that's a very broad but very good baseline for developing a relationship, whether that is a relationship with yourself, with a duo partner, with a person in real life, where, you know, I'm trying to attribute these kind of more psychological filled situations to improving in video games. And I think it's a very important, very different idea than maybe a lot of people are used to, and that is okay. But something I guess that I'm trying to do now is to start taking action in the things that I want to do, even if the action is a little bit not as good. I have a lot of things that I want to say, but I never say them because I don't know how to. So this is where I'm starting to say that I'm going to be making a change. For a while, I was like, if I was a good coach, I would have been a good coach, but I'm not a good coach. And that's wrong, because I can say confidently that I think that I am a good coach. May not be a good coach in the traditional sense with a lot of things, but in certain aspects, I think that I am a good coach and I have value to certain things, and I'm making those changes actively and hopefully properly. Because now I'm starting to use the things that I use every day for my own mental health, where I go to therapy, I do a lot of reading, I do a lot of research, and it's just very helpful, I guess, both in therapy and out of therapy in this reign. So that being said, I guess the takeaway from this is, building your relations is going to be something that it takes a while, and especially a relationship with yourself, because it's very hard to understand what a relationship with yourself is. But your accountability towards yourself is going to be really, really important. And a way to do that is to develop what's called SMART goals. Let me open Firefox. I'm sure a lot of you know what a SMART goal is, but if you don't, um, a SMART goal is a framework. It's called specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Very, very clearly state what you want. Measure it by tracking the progress. Make sure that it's achievable. Don't be like, you're silver and you're trying to say, I'm going to be diamond by the end of the season. That's probably not that realistic. Relevant. Make sure that it makes sense. Like, are you a Emerald ADC main and you're saying this season I'm gonna rank up by playing jungle Talia? Probably not. You're an ADC main, dude. Like, make sure that it makes sense. Like, I'm diamond in League of Legends. I want to hit diamond in TFT. Not relevant at all. Completely different games. You know, time bound. Set a time. Don't use the season end ever as your goal, because some of those are a little bit too long. You want to make your stuff very, very short, very, very measurable, and very, very specific. No room for ambiguity, and it has to be set at a specific time. There should be a sense of urgency. This way, you can get out of your, procrastinator sort of mindset where you're saying, I've only got this amount of time left to get my goal done. That should be how you feel the whole time you've got a goal. And eventually, when you start getting better at doing those short-term goals, these SMART goals, you can do a longer time-bound goal where if you don't act on the earlier parts and steps of your time-bound goal for the first 3 months, hey, by the time you're halfway through your goal, you should confidently be able to say, I'm not going to achieve this, or I am going to achieve this. Because if my goal is to run a marathon and I've been training for 0 months out of the year, and I'm like, oh man, I have 6 more months before my marathon comes up, that's probably not that much of time if I am not a runner, or I'm a very basic runner. You know, it's just like small steps to do that. So that is long form again. I'm very, very tangenty on how I speak, but accountability. So learning accountability for yourself, learning your boundaries, developing an awareness of yourself so that you can more effectively and introspectively see your boundaries and your accountability being acted on. Knowing what fault and responsibility is and how to detach them. Because it's your fault, it's your responsibility. That's a completely wrong mindset. Because it may be your fault, it may not be your fault, but in a lot of cases, it can still be your responsibility. It's not my fault my TF got 17 kills in a row, but it's my responsibility to make sure he doesn't get that 18th kill on me. And then being very direct with communication to yourself, but using affirming positive language and no negative language. And I think that's another thing that maybe the next one's going to be about, is like the difference between positive and negative language and vision, and how that effectively prevents you from having a holistic change in how you view the game and how you see the game and how you can possibly change. Like if you are constantly pessimistic towards yourself, if you say, man, I fucking suck at this thing, that mindset is crushing you and is not allowing you to grow and change and do the things that you need to. If like the mindset of like, oh, if I was a better player, I would already be a different rank. That is, again, a defeatist, pessimistic mindset that is not allowing you to actually grow. This negative self-talk has to stop for you to be able to grow, because negative reinforcement, surprisingly, through many, many studies, is not good. And positive reinforcement, surprise, surprise, happens to be very good for your growth and development. So that's kind of probably what I would next talk about if I was going to make another video about, I guess, change and improvement through psychological means.